Hi, I'm Yvonne Webb of Action Coach Business Coaching.
And I'm Stuart Clark, the Managing Director of Russell & Russell, and we're the co-hosts and sponsors of the Glasgow Business Stories podcast. If you're enjoying Glasgow Business Stories, then why not subscribe to the channel? There's new videos dropping every fortnight with great business stories from great business owners, so we don't want you to miss out.
So, David, Alex, welcome to Glasgow Business Stories. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Hi there.
Hi. So let's just start by you telling us who you are and what you do.
Me first. So I'm Alex. I'm a fourth generation of the Equi family business. So I joined the business when I graduated from uni about 5 years ago. So I studied business and management with Italian at Glasgow Uni. And Dad basically said to me, because I always wanted to join the business, he basically said to me, you can join, but you need to go get a degree first before you come and join. So I did work part-time while I was at uni, but as soon as I graduated, he said, come on in. And then ever since then, just been working together, really.
So David, tell us how you got involved in the business and where you started.
Well, from a very young age, like say 8, believe it or not, I used to work in my grandfather's cafe shop in Hamilton. And he sold a little bit of ice cream, but it was more like confectionery and fish and chips, and he had the cafe and things. So an 8-year-old, I would go in on a Sunday morning for a couple of hours, and we'd have to get up like ridiculously early, and we'd go down, and my uncle would take us and he would show us what to do. But I very quickly became an expert at selling cigarettes and things at that age. So it was 26.5p for 10 embassy tip, and would you like a box of matches, sir, or Swan Vestas? That's extra. And so I did that like every Sunday right up until I was about 14, and my dad used to get me in doing extra shifts, so I was kind of involved. But I didn't really have any intention at that time of going into the business. I went to uni in Edinburgh to do business studies, and I kind of wanted to be an accountant. But 1 year of accountancy was enough to drive me insane. So I changed to it, and I did like economics, which sounds even more boring, but I quite like that, and business. And I finished that, was looking around for a job. I'd been working for my dad during the summer. And one of those years when I was about 18, 19 is when he taught me how to make ice cream. But that was just to cover him. And I had other jobs elsewhere, but I had no real intention and couldn't get a job at that time, as could like quite a lot of people. I mean, contemporaries of mine couldn't get, including Scotland's First Minister, John Swinney. He was in my course. And so we just had to do what we can. So I went to work for 6 months, and 39 years later, I'm still there.
And so was ice cream part of the business, not the main business at that point?
He always made ice cream. When I was very young, they just had vanilla ice cream that they made at the side, and you couldn't see where they made it in a traditional Italian kind of, we call it, without getting too technical, like a vertical freezer, and you scoop it out, and it was always fresh. But then in the 70s, I can remember my dad, he had these big visions, and he took out all his chocolates and the confectionery, and he put in a 24 flavour ice cream cabinet, 1976, 77, which was quite kind of ahead of its time. There were only like 2 or 3 people in Scotland doing that. And he then built a little production facility at the back just for himself, which he thought was great. And it became a kind of destination place to go to for ice cream. And it became like it was always really busy, just that one place. My father and I were, when I came in, my father and I were partners for a bit. And my uncle was there as well, but the two of them passed away quite young. So I was left. They didn't really want to spend any money in the business. It was quite old-fashioned, really. So I was left kind of on my own at that stage, but had its good points and also had its downsides as well, because there was nobody to look up to advise you and things. But it meant I could have carte blanche to do what I like.
And so what age was that when you took over the business?
I was managing director when I was 28.
Okay. And was it still a kind of cafe at that stage?
It was. It was still doing decent turnover, a busy place. They had like 30 staff, and I was dealing with, it was a lot of older staff. So that was a big thing for me, being this young guy, because obviously they thought, who's this idiot coming in? And that was quite hard to just kind of get back down to earth. But I spent that time, I used to make when I started, I made all the ice cream for about 10 years, and then literally everything. And one guy in there, he was helping me as well with the flavours, but I did all the base recipes and stuff. So that gave me, I quite like the experimentation of doing that. While my friends were all on graduate trainee courses or whatever, I'm on a personal journey into the finer forms of ice cream, which to this day has held me in good stead because I studied everything.
So you were managing director at 20 and it was a cafe at that stage.
A cafe restaurant with a takeaway, and he did ice cream as well. So but we'd had inquiries from other people to buy ice cream, but my dad didn't want to do it. The place was still the same as it had been in the 60s when he'd spent a lot of money on it, doing it up. And it'd been going obviously since 1920, but they had this big refurb in the 60s. And I had to decide what I wanted to do. So my dad was ill for a year he actually had leukemia, so he just wasn't well. Went from being like really fit to, but we had a lot of chats when he was in hospital. And one of the things he said to me was just do what you want to do, but I don't think he realised quite the extent of, because he did see all this equipment coming in before he got out of hospital. He said, what's all this equipment here? How have you paid for this? Because he was of the generation that you didn't buy anything and you paid for it outright, and you wouldn't buy a car, and he would buy a car and pay for it in full, and things like that. And it was just different generation. And but he did well in his own career. And so at that stage, I went and I did the whole place in Hamilton up. I did a massive refurb within about 6 months, and had that going. And then we had guests in. We had an official opening, and they came and said, oh, the place is lovely, but ice cream factory's not a bit of a dive. And I thought from then, no, I'm not having anybody say that. So a couple of years later, I did up a little production unit at the back of Hamilton, which at the time I thought was massive. And then we started supplying other people, but we didn't really have many customers. And so gradually we picked it up. And then that took a wee while, but we only really kind of got into it about 10 years ago, because I was still running all these other businesses. At that point, I diverted into other things, like different units, and I was co-owner of Nardini's in Largs, which is the big ice cream place down there, and I built a little factory there, and I used to run that. So I'd be working in Hamilton during the day and at Largs at the weekend. In fact, Alex used to come with me, and that was good. There's loads of stories about that, but that was just a different. But my main thing was doing ice cream, and I wanted, and we realised over the years that what we had wasn't good enough. And we were supplying by this stage supermarkets and things, which is unbelievable. From a little place behind, we built the unit behind, we had to buy the house next door.
Our first wholesale customer was Silver Birch Garden Centre, and we still have them. It's so nice, because I think it's just nice that Dad just literally deliver it out the back of his car.
Yes, I used to take the stuff out. My dad wasn't keen. He was about for a bit on me supplying anybody else. So I used to have to come in at night and make it and deliver it in my car and stuff. He just didn't want it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. So he discovered that we was doing, and then he thought that, oh yes, this, he said, have you tried the ice cream? What's this? Ice cream's lovely. Have you changed this slightly?
And you had?
I had to admit I'd made about 50 recipe changes before I was happy with what we did, but all for the good. And he said, no, that's fantastic. You do well, you'll do well. And then I think the first time I entered a competition, a UK national competition in Malone, I got a silver medal. So my dad was still alive at that point. So he loved that, because he'd never won one by that stage. And but after then, like fast forward a bit, we realised our unit in Hamilton wasn't big enough, because it was basically, my father was born in this, we had the staff room upstairs. It was basically like a tenement building, and with various flats. There was other people used to live upstairs, and it was all, and you tell staff, this is where 5 family used to live in these 2 rooms, and they wouldn't believe you. And there was 23 people lived in the building. But I had all these stories, but they'd never done anything upstairs, because when I was refurbing the place, I opened a cupboard, and it was what to do in the event of an air raid. And it was all this stuff from World War II and everything. So a lot of that. Good thing was we kept all the old stuff and the old memorabilia and all the menus and everything. It's all in the National Archive now, because they found out about it, and because we get the original menus from the 30s and things. They love all that kind of stuff. And so it's all secure. So, sorry, going off topic here.
No, but there's a lot of history there then. So was it, to go from running all those units to go, right, we're just going to focus wholly on wholesale. Was that quite a nerve-wracking decision?
It was, because I needed to build a new factory, and it's quite hard. It was really hard, and I'd be in my mid-50s at this stage, and it'd be hard. It was a big change of direction for us. So I sold my share in Nardini's to my partner, and I was planning for doing it, still running a few of these other shops, and but it was a big, it was serious investment that we had to come up with. So we had a plan, we had a unit, we had support from Scottish Enterprise, we were doing, but this time we'd built our customer base up a bit. We were up about 1 million turnover or something, so we could see the potential. And but couldn't find a site. It's really hard to find a decent site.
We used to drive about Glasgow at night, just looking at different factory sites. That was what we did.
We spent days going around looking at sites, and 90% of them were, we could get cheaper sites that were older sites, but they're not fit for purpose for what you'd want to do. So, and it was quite hard. It was virtually impossible to buy a site. So, because all the ones in industrials, they're all owned by big pension funds and things like that. So nobody owns their site. So came across this site in Rutherglen, which is brand new. And I thought, well, that would be ideal, but it was kind of too big for what we were looking for. So, and I asked the landlord, would he separate, but he wasn't interested. So we then had to look at something else. We had a bit of a false start in Motherwell where we signed up, and then the deal fell through because of the landlord. So it was a long journey. And then, but eventually it came round that we got the site of our dreams, and we had support from, and there's also, a lot of these sites don't have things like basic things like electrical power. They're only designed, you'd think in an industrial estate somebody would put enough power in, but you have to upgrade everything. But even the substation didn't have enough power for what we needed. And they say, well, that's another thing. Say, how much power are you going to do? Well, how do it? Even the technical people. So we'd sat and did plans and then did it again and again and again. But eventually I did a deal with a landlord. We paid for the extra power. We separated this unit ourselves, and we got this perfect unit. And I signed the lease, and then 3 weeks later, what happened? Lockdown.
Disaster.
So we had a big empty shed where you could get a good game of five-a-side football, and that was about it. And we weren't allowed to do any work on it for 10 months, at which point we had the finance all agreed for it, for the equipment. A lot of that fell through because the banks pulled it, and it was like your worst nightmare. And the business as a whole was shut, as a lot of businesses were. So that was probably the lowest point. And I think if you can get through stuff like that, well, eventually we worked our way through that. But that was maybe our biggest hurdle. And about 1.5 years, so we opened the new factory. We signed the lease in February 20, and we opened in October 21. So we were about a year late.
And at that point, had you sold all your other assets? Did you put all your eggs in one basket? No, so you still had? I
still had some of them. I'd sold some of them, but it was complicated. So a couple of years ago, I sold the retail unit at Hamilton. The original had been in the family for 100 years, and the current owner, Vincent, is a great guy, operates it under licence, and it's still called Equi's, and we still sell all the ice cream there. But I was, they do teach you that kind of thing at business school, just to concentrate on what you're good at if you had, because I can remember not that long ago, maybe 10 years ago, I'd spend every Monday morning going from shop to shop to shop, picking up takings and checking things like that. And you're not really thinking big picture when you're doing all that. Mm. So, but what I really wanted to do was build a state-of-the-art ice cream factory. Now, I'd kind of half done it when I was younger, and I had some quite good kit, but I wanted the best stuff. And because we had a lot of time to do it, we could sit down and design from scratch. So, and I asked loads of people. I mean, we asked for their help on it. A lot of people, because I was involved in the trade association, it's called the Ice Cream Alliance, which I know sounds like a bunch of Marvel characters. Ice Cream Alliance. Anyway, I'm actually back now. They brought me back I'm now the treasurer, just to keep it out. It's actually very successful now. But it's a trade association for all manufacturers, and it's good for peer help and things. So like my best mate who I met through there has got a company similar to ours in Northern Ireland, and we're at the same stage of growth. So we share a lot of stuff. We help each other out with buying group. I think it's really important to do that, whereas back in the day, people didn't share. And, even like locally, we do, it's important to us, to do stuff like that, because you always get something. So I'm always asking questions and things. We were on a course last week, a technical course. So we're always interested.
With other ice cream manufacturers. And it's always good because sometimes you think people are quite protective and don't want to share, but then you actually meet face to face and have a conversation with them, and it's great because there's things that they'll know that we don't, and there's things that we can share with them as well. So that was really good too.
Some people are famously, it's just a bit old school about secret recipes and things like that.
Yeah,
There's a family who I can't mention, but they're from England, and they're only a little outlet like we used to have in Hamilton, but they have a rule where there's only 2 people that know the recipe, and they're not allowed to go to Italy on the same plane in case something happens.
We do that as well. No, just kidding.
So Alex, you mentioned there you always wanted to be in the family business growing up. So I'm interested to hear why that was the case, what it was like growing up when your dad was doing all this.
Mm-hmm. So I think I just always saw Dad as sort of like a busy businessman and never really understood, like obviously when you're younger, the background of what goes on. And then when I was at uni, I started to work kind of part-time in the business doing marketing. So like I took over all the social media and stuff. So that was really fun. And I think to have that much control at such a young age, I think I was like 19 and running the socials, which, a lot of companies would not let you do. So things like that, Dad's always been really supportive of. But when I was younger, like it was something I always wanted to do, like coming up with new flavours and things like that. Dad would let me, he came home one night and he was rebranding all the vans. And he came home and he had like 4 different versions of the logo. And he was like, which one do you want? And I just got to choose it. Things like that.
Actually, you were quite young at the time.
Yeah. So it's just always something that I've loved. And I just knew that was what I wanted to do. Like there wasn't an alternative. My 2 sisters are both doctors, so there's no chance of them being interested in ice cream. But yeah, I just love it.
And what role do you play now in the company?
So my title is brand manager, but I honestly do like a bit of everything, like a bit of obviously marketing, PR predominantly, and then also getting more involved in like account management for our supermarket customers. So looking after our supermarket key accounts, also getting involved in sort of more technical side. So like ingredient declaration specs, buying, like negotiating better prices with suppliers and stuff. I'd say probably in the last couple of years, Dad's sort of to hand like a bit more responsibility to me with things like that. And yeah, just sort of coming together with Dad's not retiring anytime soon, but some sort of succession plan for future.
And how does it feel to be now entering into the fourth generation? Is that right? Mm-hmm. It must be, I would imagine, really a proud feeling.
It is very much so, yeah, because I said, my sisters weren't involved in the business. They went on did their own individual careers, which, they've been really successful. And there was no family, literally, it was me and my mum. My mum didn't really work in the business. So I always wanted to ensure that the business went to the next level. I'd much rather do that than, build a business up to sell it on or whatever. I'm very mindful of, my grandfather who founded the business. I mean, I was 17 when he passed away, so I used to sit and talk to him all the time. He would tell me all these stories about selling ice cream during the Second World War and things like that. And I always felt there was a big tradition thing going on there, so it makes me really proud. But I'm absolutely made sure that Alex, I wouldn't force her into doing it. It's only if she really, really wants to do it.
Yeah, you've always
said that. Because I think I've always said that, because I wouldn't force, because I think you see that in family businesses. There's a rule of thumb, and the first person goes out and develops it, the second person takes it to the next level, and the third generation are a bunch of wasters. And somebody asked me, and I'm third generation, and I'm third generation. You're 4th generation. You're all right. And now we've got a 5th generation as well, because Nora's my little niece is not niece. Your niece, my granddaughter. Sorry, cut that. And she's 1. But there is potential there, to keep it. And that is important. But I see a lot of family businesses, they fall down because there's actually too many of them involved, people taking a wage and they're not doing any work.
I think that's probably why it works well with me and Dad as well, because it is just the 2 of us. Like, as much as I love my sisters, I think when there's so many opinions, families aren't scared to tell each other their opinions. And fallouts, like, not that we fall out a lot, but like, it's sometimes.
What do you
mean? But yeah, I think it works because it is just the 2 of us, and there's not too many clashing heads.
And we've got a really experienced team around us.
Yeah, of course.
Which makes a massive difference. Yes.
So you talked about state-of-the-art ice cream factory. What does that actually mean? But what is state of the art? What kind of things have you got
I
in
need
there?
to show you.
Excellent. Can I come?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Well, we were Lanarkshire Green Business of the Year. We did it from scratch, so everything's starting from a green point of view and a local sourcing point of view. And we buy all our milk from the farm just up the road, Park Farm in East Kilbride. So that's really important. Single origin milk, Scottish double cream. It's a big thing to us, and that's what differentiates us from other people. It's all high-end ingredients. I know everybody says that, but we make a big point of that. And we wanted to make it as... There are always compromises. We had this site, 10,000 square foot. Basically, it was a blank sheet of paper. You could design it, but there's all sorts of legal things you have to bear in mind in different rooms. But the tech is good. We recycle all our water. For instance, it saves us 16 million litres of water a year. We did our net zero plan thing. And the one thing we're missing was solar panels, but we've now got them up and running. In fact, yesterday at one stage, we were 100% on solar, which was the first time ever, because we installed it at completely the wrong time of year, just the way times were, and it was like foggy for about 2 weeks. But yesterday it was sunny, so it just shows you the potential there. One of the biggest hurdles is our electricity bill is really, really high, so anything we can do to get that down. But apart from that, and apart from the state of the art, and we have our own NPD department, the actual kit is all top of the range, best stuff you can buy. The only way you would get is just a bigger version of what we've got, and we've designed it all, and we keep renewing the kit. As I say, we've just bought a robot to help with the filling stage, and I'm looking forward to getting that commissioned. I mean, it should work in theory, but we're just tying all the things together. So that's something that I always wanted to do. And the bank manager came to me 2 years ago and said, "What are your ambitions?" I said, "I want to put solar panels in a robot." And he said, "Not this year, David." But we're doing it now. And both of them are designed, everything's designed to improve efficiency. We've got a big fancy, the key thing in ice cream production is, without getting too technical, when it comes off the machine, it's at -5 ice cream. You could eat it. It's quite soft though. So you need to freeze that down as quickly as possible. And as Alex will know from the technical course, at -5, it's 50% water. So if you don't freeze that down as quick, those water bits, they bind together and they form ice crystals. And people say, "Oh, your ice cream's too ice," or whatever, and you don't want that. So we've got a kind of state-of-the-art blast freezer, and then another big freezer that cost, it was like $500,000 for the actual freezer units, the whole lot. And but it's every time I show people around, I'm really proud of it. It's of all the effort that we put in.
I think the difference from the original site in Hamilton to the site in Rutherglen, there's like no in between. It was so dramatic, the change. And as soon as we all moved in, it was like in Hamilton, it was literally, you had the shop at the front counter, the ice cream was getting made in the back, but then you were also doing like supermarket orders. We had like not one single big freezer. It was like containers scattered around. Like it was just becoming chaotic. The office was like in an attic. And then all of a sudden we move one day, the staff all just move across this brand new, like purpose built, everything's fresh, like all the machinery's new, and it was just such a drastic change, but I think it was really good for everyone.
Even down to the staff room and things like that, and the office is a nice working environment. And it's amazing when it was hard before to get, because I had to convince people of this vision of mine that we were going to move to somewhere fancy, because we had really good people working for us. And I said, "I can't carry on here, we're at breaking point."
People kept saying, "Oh, when's that move happening? When's that move happening?" And then, it happened.
I just said, "Look, just trust me."
Yeah.
And 5 years later, I came up with the goods.
And how did the layout of the factory look exactly the same when you signed the lease, when you're head in February 2020, when you opened it over to everyone, or did that time actually of lockdown give you time to plan?
No, we changed it about Gary, my operations guy. He spent a lot of time doing it. We ran it by the equipment manufacturers, and then you've got all your legal people and all that stuff, and your M&A, you've got to pass building control and all that, so that they kind of throw things in. But the basic theory is of a kind of circular process. Yeah, the basic theory worked. And it was just within that set space, you've got doors and things you have to work around. Then you need things like fire exits, things that you don't know in your head, well, why would I? But you do. You can only be a certain amount of time away from a fire exit, no matter where you are in the building. So once you factor all those things in, it becomes, but I ran it by, quite a few trusted people, and I think that was a good way to do it, because we got the benefit of I'm not too proud to say that, we knew absolutely what we were doing. It was just to get as much benefit. And I went to see a few other ice cream factories. I also, other ice cream people come and look at our place. I don't mind showing them around, because the days of like everything being top secret and you have to wear like, blindfolds and things. And that's, I don't mind like sort of sharing, as long as the people are prepared to reciprocate, You
actually said you'd been on an ice cream factory of America, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And did that kind of inspire you for what you then did over here, or how did that influence you?
I can remember being the previous time I'd been in America, I remember seeing like I was kind of brought up in the Italian kind of gelato kind of ice cream style, but I remember there was Ben and Jerry's, which I'd never heard of, and it wasn't really well known, and you get Häagen-Dazs was kind of just coming out, and it was a completely different type. I remember being fascinated with this and buying it and going to their factory, Ben and Jerry's, when it was still run by Ben and Jerry before they got bought over, was really interesting. I had the book and the recipes and all that. So you take a bit of everything from what you see. So I wasn't just bound to the kind of Italian ideology of how to do it, because it's different throughout the world. And the big thing was we wanted to focus completely on local ingredients. The big thing was sourcing from the local farm and things like that. We didn't used to do as much as that, and everything's Scottish, and that makes in the cream as well. And it can cost you because it can be more expensive, but people are really interested in provenance and the story, and so. But at the end of the day, it's all about making the best possible quality.
So I'm interested in the sales and actually getting into supermarkets and the grocers, having dealt with some of them, and before in my commercial past, I know they can be a fickle bunch. So going from just having a shop or outlets selling ice cream to selling into grocers is quite a different thing. How did you handle that change?
It was a learning curve, I'll be honest, and we're still on that learning curve, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, we only just started supplying Sainsbury's this year, so about 6 months ago. So that was like a brand new supermarket that we brought on board for the first time. So that was really exciting. But we do still supply like a lot of independent dessert parlours across Scotland, as well as the supermarkets. So it's like balancing.
It's a kind of a mixture.
Yeah, balancing the two.
Which is quite good. And we do, and to be honest, as of the start of the year, we're going to be with every major multiple in Scotland, which is good for us. And we do a bit down south as well, and we do a bit of export. So if you'd asked me 10 years ago, are you going to be selling ice cream in the States, David? I would say, no, you're off your head. But we are. I'm just back from a trip. We've got a chain of supermarkets out there that sell ours. So that's a big learning curve. I think it's a completely different ballgame. The biggest change is a lot of people make ice cream from like 1 or 2 units, like, or gelateria type places where they make for themselves. But to do it on a wholesale basis, it's like a completely different ball game. It's completely different procedures. If you're worried, you need to concern yourself more with things like shelf life and things like that. Whereas before, everything's got to be perfect. And
making sure the product.
If you're just making stuff and they're selling it the next day, you can do all sorts of things, and you're not, and you've got to watch your costs and things. But when you start doing it for supermarkets, it's all about technical specs. And these days, well, I mean, it's the same for everybody these days, but it's allergens and things like that are massive.
And people in supermarkets, they're taking tubs in and out the freezer, leaving the door open. So making sure that ice cream is going to stay at its best quality, even in those conditions, the same as it will be if it's freshly made. It's probably quite a big challenge, but I think we've got it.
But you
we've got it nailed.
Consistency, I guess, as well.
Yeah, because we want people to
the consistency of the product.
Yeah, the same experience if they were to go into one of our parlours and get a freshly scooped cone as when they go into the supermarket. It's the exact same thing.
Or they buy a single scoop tub at the theatre or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's getting it the same now. Ice cream no frozen product can stand up to being left to freeze, melt and completely refreeze again. So if ice cream is in and out the freezer and it's defrosting, I think it can, because we use a lot of cream, it can survive a lot of that, and everything's made to exact specs. But we need to, that's a big point about the quality control, make sure everything's perfect. So we're obsessive about, it's all about the small details, the incremental gains from like small things like that guy that developed the British cycling team, and it was all about just a little tiny, it might be something silly, but you think about it, but it all works, it all adds on. And to me, and it's also about constantly improving as well.
Just listening to you talk is making me think what a big step change you've made. What gave you the confidence to do what you've done?
to switch from the cafes and things like to big production, I think it was always, that's the one thing I truly loved doing. And I just wanted to be true to myself. And I got to the age, and I was about 55. And I remember somebody saying, well, it's too stressful. Why are you doing this? Because it is stressful and trying to raise money. And then he says, you don't need to do this if you don't want to. And you can pull out. I said, no, I want to do it. I don't, it's really important to me. And I'm so glad, because I enjoy business as much these days, probably more so than I've ever done. I'm not saying it's not stressful. It can get stressful, but it's what we really wake up and go, yay, this is what we've done. Every time I show people the factory, or I say, we Princess Anne opening our factory, for instance, and I showed her around for an hour, and then that's a thing I would never have dreamt of.
Amazing. So what's the next ambition? Where are you taking it next?
I think we'd definitely like to grow our export business. So obviously we supply one chain of supermarkets in the US, but right now we're looking at expanding that into other states. So that's Central Markets in Texas. So I'm currently doing an export course to see where we can expand. We're going to Dubai in January to Gulf Food, which is the biggest food expo in the world, to potentially look at exporting to the Middle East. So that's very exciting. And I think from when I've joined the business, it has been very established. So I think for me, it's probably different to Dad's experience, where he's taken it really from just the single shop. So for me to be able to start at this stage is really exciting, I think, and it will be the next steps of growing.
Yeah. There was a massive cultural change that I noticed from me taking over, and compared to now, it's just in terms of employees and things, it's massively different.
We've got such a good team of people,
it took us we didn't have any ice cream staff apart from one guy and myself, but so now we've got 26, but getting the right team and training them up, and that makes, and it's particularly when you can, because I used to be jack of all trades, and we'd be running around firefighting all the time, and you just realise you don't, you're master of none. You don't really, because you have to be aware of your own limitations, which I've got quite a lot, and but if you can do that and manage a team and get the best out of people, that's what makes me happy. That's the goal.
We started using consultants as well. So we have an MPD consultant who we use for coming up with new flavour ideas and recipes and things like that. So that's really helpful. And marketing, PR, we use a PR agency as well. So they're able to give us brilliant opportunities that we maybe wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah, because at some stage you've got to speculate to accumulate, so you need to bring it. When you're starting up, you can't afford anything. So you say, I can't afford that, can't afford that, can't afford that. I mean, for a long time, I didn't have a car when I was doing the...
But you had ice cream, what do you want?
I drove around in the Equi's van, and I would... building it up like that, and then when you get to the next stage, you think, this is what we want to do. But all that, it's easy to get ahead of yourselves, so...
And was the new factory, was that the catalyst for you stepping back and starting to look at that bigger picture strategy, or when did that start?
I think I'd already been doing a bit of that. When I stopped, I came out of Nardini's, I did a deal with my partner. I mean, we're still friends, which is unusual in circumstances like that. And this is what I wanted to do. I'd had a lot of help from Scottish Enterprise, and they were kind of guiding me along the lines. We used to have everything was one company, but then we split the retail and the manufacturing into a separate company. I think things like that, just professionalising, then realising that we'd so far to go to make ourselves to get to that standard where we want to be. We're along that road today, but there's still a lot more that we could do. Yeah.
And how hard was it to do that? Step back and not, start getting involved in doing recipes and...
Well, I still do all that stuff, but the day-to-day...
actually physically making the ice
Physically
cream.
making it, it's not a problem not doing it, to be honest. I used to be the fittest guy in Hamilton, now I'm not so much, but because I was doing a lot of lifting and things like that, but you physically can't do that. I mean, I had a young family as well, so it was tricky, and I would say if I could speak to my younger self, I would probably say delegate a lot earlier than I did.
And you talked there about the culture change in the team when you came in, and tell us how you build the culture now. How do you keep the culture alive?
Cultural change, I'd say, somebody asked me this the other day, it's treat treat your colleagues the way you would expect to be treated, you know, and as a part, I mean, not everybody says that, right? But as part of like a kind of big family, we go into the office. I get a row when I go in the office because I just come in and it's a carry on for about 20 minutes or so and say, right, get out, David. And then other times I come in and it has to be really serious and we'll do that. But it's getting people that are fit for our company. So you work hard, but you can also have a laugh and you can see it, and then you help each other out. And but bottom line is, you've got decent terms and conditions. You got to look after people. We've got quite a good staff retention rate these days. Very, very good, and that means a lot because the cost of recruiting somebody and training them up, and all our guys on the factory floor are all multi-skilled and everything. So we're proud to be like real living wage. We pay more than that, and things like that. Just a bit. There's always going to be people who.
Because we are a family business as well.
Offer, yes, and it's still keeping those family values while getting without losing. I never want to lose our artisan roots. That's important to me. I don't want to become big business. I want to keep those artisan roots, but have a bigger company level of professionalism. There's also, I remember we lost what do you call it when you bid for something?
Tender.
A tender. Yeah, that's right. So it was a late night last night. And they give us the scores compared to a competitor, and we were like marked down for everything compared to them, apart from product quality. And I thought, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. That was accreditation. So we gradually have been. So I want to be able to do anything, and if not more, because we're a small company, we can come up with an idea in the morning and make it in the afternoon, which is what we do regularly. Mm-hmm. And, we were at a session the other day and we came up with a new flavour, hot honey, and what was it with, Alex?
Hot honeycomb.
Hot honeycomb.
And we can still turn things around like very quickly, because we do still have like the small batch freezers that you would get if you went into an ice cream parlour and they were making it fresh. We still have them. We still make ice cream on them, as well as having the big like automated pot filler. So I think the fact that we can do both is really nice.
So we've got like a test kitchen, and we do NPD every month. So we'll do like 10 new flavours, then we get people in, we've got a team in and we get to score them. And then that's quite good fun. But we'll have sometimes random people come in, like there might be a supermarket buyer, and you say, would you like to join the panel? And they love that. In fact, I met a guy yesterday who said, oh, I remember, how did I remember? That was the best day. And he went away, took half of them home, and we had 10 different experimental flavours, and they were to rate it on how much you like it yourself, and then the commercial appeal, because it's not necessarily the same thing. And so we like doing that. And out of that, that's how we brought out our newer lines. Like we did a strawberry cheesecake with Scottish strawberry. It's been very successful. Yes, and we always wanted to do, we did a pistachio flavour. We wanted to do an improved pistachio flavour. So spent a lot of time researching that in Italy. I go to a trade show in Italy every year. There's a great trade show in Rimini every year just for gelato, ice cream and like pastry. And it's huge. And you go, and I remember going in, thinking, well, we'll maybe go once in 1988. I've been now been 25 times, and they would go every year, and you always pick something up. You see, that's always good. Their flavour trends are always a bit ahead of where we are, but we're on that. So pistachio, for instance, I sourced it from people that I'd met at that show. We buy 100% pure pistachio from Sicily, and it's very, very expensive pistachio, especially at the moment, because everybody's buying it with that Dubai chocolate and all that, so the price is all. So getting that kind of, using my friends, perfect that, we spent a long time. The strawberry cheesecake one was one we did where we were asked to make it by a supermarket as an own label product, and eventually they kept changing the spec. They wanted a cheesecake with crunch in it, which is really quite hard with ice cream when you do it. They kept benchmarking against other flavours that were 2-3 times the price. So we came up, after about 16 versions, we came up with this, but it was going to be too expensive for them. So we thought, well, that's too good. We're going to do that ourselves. So we do that ourselves. So that's our own recipe, and we use Scottish strawberries in it, and it's lovely, isn't it? And that actually sells in the States. So you could tell this story to people, and I was out selling, and we were doing in-store demos in Texas, believe it or not, and you're telling these people that they don't believe you.
I could talk about ice cream all day, but we're going to finish up by asking you the question we ask every guest at the end, which is, what's your guiding principle in business?
I think, as Dad said earlier, just treating people with the way that you would want to be treated and with respect is our kind of guiding principle in how we operate the business.
Thank you both for coming on. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.